First contact and deception. The Voidborn Empire had conquered over 3,000 worlds across 7 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their technological supremacy was unquestioned, their military might unchallenged. For 9 millennia, they had expanded without significant resistance, absorbing primitive species into their collective, or, when necessary, eliminating those foolish enough to resist. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the inevitable dominance, his scaled fingers tracing patterns across the holographic display of the small blue-green planet that had appeared on their long-range scanners. Earth, the natives called it. His thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among the Voidborn. Another simple conquest, he said, his voice a melodious hiss that echoed across the polished obsidian floor of the bridge. The metals adorning his ceremonial armor clinked softly as he moved closer to the viewport. Preliminary scans show no energy shields, no orbital defenses, primitive spacecraft limited to their own solar system. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear fission devices. They've only recently developed global communications networks, said Science Officer Mira, her 6-fingered hands dancing across the control panel. Their technology is advancing rapidly for a species of their age, but they remain centuries behind our capabilities. Vex nodded, unsurprised. The Empire had absorbed hundreds of worlds at similar developmental stages. The process was always the same: demonstrate overwhelming power, demand submission, and add another resource-rich planet to the Emperor's vast holdings. Rarely was there any meaningful resistance. The Empire's technological advantage made such attempts futile. "Prepare the diplomatic vessel," Vex ordered. "I will lead the delegation personally." "Is that necessary, Commander?" questioned Mira, her luminescent eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of confusion among their kind. "I enjoy first contact," Vex replied, running a clawed hand over his ridged skull. "The moment when a species realizes its insignificance in the cosmos, their fear is satisfying." The Imperial shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced cloaking technology preventing detection, until the vessel hovered just 100 meters above the landing site, a flat expanse outside a major human settlement called New Delhi. The shuttle's abrupt appearance sent nearby humans into a panic, their primitive vehicles scattering like insects. Vex emerged first, his tall, slender form towering over 2 meters. His metallic blue scales shimmered in the sunlight as 40 soldiers in gleaming black armor formed perfect rows behind him, their energy weapons held at ceremonial attention. Within hours, Earth's primitive aircraft, jets, they called them, circled at a cautious distance. By the following morning, a human delegation approached the ship. They wore formal attire, both military uniforms and civilian suits. Leading them was a stern-faced woman with silver-streaked black hair. "I am General Ananya Sharma," she said through a translator device the humans had hastily constructed. "I represent the United Earth Defense Council." Vex performed the ceremonial greeting of the Empire, touching his heart with 3 fingers before extending his hand, palm up. "I am Commander Vex of the Voidborn Empire. We control 3,000 worlds across 7 spiral arms of this galaxy. We bring order and advancement to developing species." General Sharma's expression remained impassive. "We appreciate your interest in Earth, Commander. However, we must address your unauthorized landing. This constitutes a breach of our sovereignty." Vex blinked slowly, confused by the response. These humans should be awed, frightened, not speaking of sovereignty as if they were equals. "You misunderstand," Vex said, his translator conveying his words with perfect clarity. "The Empire is not asking permission. Your world has been cataloged as resource-rich and suitable for integration. Your species will serve the Empire, and in exchange, you will receive protection and limited access to Imperial technology." He waited for fear to register in their eyes. Instead, General Sharma simply nodded, as if considering a routine proposal. "We appreciate your offer," Sharma replied evenly, "but Earth remains independent. We're open to establishing peaceful relations as equals, perhaps trade agreements or cultural exchange. But we do not accept vassalage. Commander Vex felt something he had not experienced in decades: surprise. He straightened to his full height, his scales darkening slightly, a physiological response to agitation. "You have no choice," Vex said, his voice hardening. "The Empire does not negotiate with pre-FTL civilizations. Accept our terms or face consequences." General Sharma's expression remained calm. "We understand your position, Commander. We request 48 hours to consult with our global leadership." Vex granted the time, certain they would accept reality once the initial shock wore off. Back on the ship, Science Officer Mira voiced concern. "Their response is unusual, Commander. Most species show proper fear." "They simply don't understand our power yet," Vex replied. "Tomorrow they will accept their place." But the humans didn't return the next day. Instead, their primitive satellites repositioned, their radio communications increased tenfold, and their military vessels, ships that traveled on water and air, redistributed near major population centers. "They're preparing defenses," observed Security Chief Draz. "Primitive ones," Vex scoffed. "But the intent is clear." Vex sent a communication demanding an immediate response to the Empire's terms. General Sharma replied with a request for more time. On the third day, the Imperial sensors detected something unusual: a small Earth vessel ascending through the atmosphere on a trajectory that would bring it near the inevitable dominance, which orbited cloaked from human detection. "It's scanning unusual frequencies," reported the sensor officer. "They might be trying to detect our ship." "Impossible," Vex said. "Their technology is far too primitive." "Their scan patterns suggest otherwise," Draz insisted. "This could be a reconnaissance mission. They might be probing for weaknesses." Vex hesitated. The vessel was small, likely containing only a few humans, but if they had somehow detected the Imperial flagship, "Destroy it," he ordered finally. "Make it appear to be a mechanical failure." Security Chief Draz targeted the vessel with a precise energy beam. From Earth, it would appear that the ship simply exploded due to internal problems. Clean, simple, untraceable. The destruction took only seconds. What happened next shocked the Imperial crew. Within hours, every communications channel on Earth exploded with activity. Military forces worldwide went to high alert. Nuclear weapons, primitive but still dangerous, were prepared for launch. Science Officer Mira burst onto the bridge, her normally composed face showing alarm. "Commander, we're intercepting thousands of communications." The humans knew it was their research vessel. They had recording devices transmitting data back to Earth. They saw our energy beam. "Impossible," Vex whispered. "They're sharing the information globally," Mira continued. "Every nation, every military force." The communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's on all frequencies." Vex nodded, and the officer put it through. General Sharma's face appeared on the screen, no longer diplomatic but stern with controlled anger. "Commander Vex, your unprovoked attack on an unarmed research vessel constitutes an act of war against Earth. We now understand the true nature of your empire. Earth formally rejects your terms and will defend its independence with all available means." Vex stared in disbelief as the transmission ended. "They've declared war," Mira reported incredulously. "The entire planet." Vex looked back at the seemingly insignificant blue world below. For the first time in his long career, he felt a flicker of uncertainty. Something about these humans was different. "Return to the ship," he ordered his ground team. "We'll await reinforcements from the Imperial fleet." As the diplomatic vessel rose from Earth's surface, Vex watched the humans below. They didn't scatter in terror as expected. Instead, they watched with determined faces, some using devices to record the ship's departure. What Vex didn't know, what the Empire couldn't have anticipated, was that humans had been listening to the stars for decades. Their SETI programs, dismissed as primitive by Imperial intelligence, had intercepted faint traces of Imperial communications years ago. Earth's scientists hadn't understood the content, but they'd recognized the artificial patterns. Earth had known they weren't alone. They had been preparing. Deep beneath the Himalayas, in bunkers shielded from Imperial scans, scientists had been developing technology based on theories derived from those intercepted signals. When Vex's ship destroyed the research vessel, it confirmed their worst fears and validated their preparations. General Sharma stood in the command center of the Global Defense Initiative, surrounded by leaders from every major nation. Screens displayed the orbital position of the cloaked Imperial ship, tracked using detection systems that the Voidborn didn't know humans possessed. "They underestimate us," Sharma said, her voice steady. "That will be their downfall." A scientist approached with a tablet displaying energy readings. "The prototype is ready, General." Sharma nodded. "Then it's time to show the Empire what humans can do when threatened." High above, on the inevitable dominance, Commander Vex was preparing a transmission to Imperial High Command when alarms blared across the bridge. "Energy spike from the planet's surface," shouted the sensor officer, panic evident in his voice. "What kind of?" Vex began, but never finished his question. "A beam of concentrated energy, technology the humans shouldn't have for centuries, pierced the inevitable dominance's shields as if they weren't there." The beam struck with surgical precision, disabling the ship's main power core without destroying the vessel. As emergency systems activated, Vex stared at the view screen in shock. How is this possible?" On his command display, a transmission from Earth appeared. General Sharma's face filled the screen, her expression now showing a grim satisfaction. "Commander Vex, your ship has been disabled. Your crew will not be harmed if you surrender immediately. We've been studying your kind for longer than you know. This is your only warning. Leave our system and tell your Empire, Earth is not for conquest." Vex could only stare as the implications became clear. Somehow, these humans had technology they shouldn't possess. Somehow, they had prepared for this encounter. The Voidborn Empire had made a catastrophic error. They had assumed, they had underestimated, and now they faced a species unlike any they had encountered before, a species that didn't know when to be afraid. The Empire's reckoning. Grand Admiral Zol slammed his fist onto the holographic display table, making the star map flicker. The reports from Commander Vex troubled him, not because he feared the humans, but because he was annoyed at the waste of his time. Primitive beings declaring war on the Empire. He said with a harsh laugh that echoed through the command chamber of the Eternal Subjugation, the flagship of the Imperial fleet. At over 5 kilometers long, it was a mobile fortress capable of reducing entire continents to ash. They haven't even mastered faster than light travel. The 5 admirals gathered around the table remained silent. Zol had commanded the Imperial fleet for 2 centuries. No one questioned his judgment openly. Commander Vex overreacted. Zol continued, running a clawed finger along the ridged crest that marked his pure Voidborn bloodline. "One ship temporarily disabled, and he acts as if these humans pose a real threat." Admiral Krell, the youngest of the group, cleared her throat. "The intelligence reports suggest they developed energy weapons based on our technology, weapons that penetrated our shields. That's unprecedented for a pre-FTL species." Zol waved a dismissive hand. "A lucky strike. Perhaps they salvaged technology from an earlier scout ship or intercepted some basic communications. It changes nothing." His yellow eyes narrowed. "Send the 3rd Division. These humans need to understand their place in the galaxy." "The entire 3rd Division?" Admiral Krell asked, eyes widening. "That's 50 warships for a single planet. 49 more than necessary," Zol agreed with a thin smile. "But the display will be educational for other potential troublemakers in the sector." The orders went out immediately. Within days, 50 Imperial warships assembled at the edge of Earth's solar system. The fleet was an imposing sight, massive vessels bristling with energy cannons and launch bays, their hulls decorated with the symbols of conquered worlds. Admiral Vorn, commander of the 3rd Division, addressed his captains from the bridge of his flagship, the Emperor's Fury. "Our mission is simple," Vorn said, his voice traveling through the secure communication network. "We will enter their system, destroy their military capabilities, and demand surrender. The Emperor wants this planet's resources intact, so we avoid destroying population centers unless absolutely necessary." Captain Laris, a decorated veteran of a dozen subjugation campaigns, raised a question. "Intelligence suggests they may have developed technology based on our own. Should we be concerned?" Admiral Vorn laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "They had weeks to study fragments of our technology. We've had millennia to perfect it. Their crude adaptations pose no threat to a proper battle fleet." The Imperial Armada moved into the solar system with methodical precision. They passed the gas giants without incident, their sensors detecting nothing but automated probes and research stations, which they destroyed as they passed. "No resistance yet," Captain Laris noted as they approached the asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. "Perhaps they've reconsidered their declaration of war." Admiral Vorn nodded. "Sensible, if disappointing. I was looking forward to showing these humans real power." The fleet continued inward, spreading into attack formation as they passed Mars. Still, their sensors detected nothing except some small abandoned bases on the red planet. "This is strange," Laris said, mandibles clicking in confusion. "Where are their defenses?" "Perhaps hiding behind their moon," Vorn suggested. "A primitive attempt at ambush." As the fleet approached Earth's moon, sensors remained quiet. No ships, no weapons platforms, no defense systems. "Could they have hidden their military assets on the planet's surface?" an officer suggested. Vorn frowned, his scaled brow furrowing. "Scan everything. They must have some defense plan." The fleet moved into Earth orbit, still detecting nothing beyond civilian satellites and space debris. Vorn ordered the destruction of these satellites as a demonstration of power. The energy cannons of the Emperor's Fury charged, targeting the largest communications satellites. That's when everything changed. Proximity alarms blared across every ship in the fleet simultaneously. Where empty space had existed moments before, hundreds of small objects now appeared, having dropped some kind of cloaking technology. "What are those?" demanded Vorn, rising from his command chair. Before anyone could answer, the objects accelerated toward the Imperial ships at impossible speeds. They weren't vessels. They were too small, barely larger than escape pods. "Evasive maneuvers," Vorn shouted, but it was too late. The objects attached themselves to the hulls of the Imperial warships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, power fluctuations cascaded through the fleet. Weapon systems went offline. Engines failed. Communications dissolved into static. "Some kind of electromagnetic pulse technology," Captain Laris reported, her voice tight with disbelief. "They've adapted our own shield frequencies against us." On the main view screen, a transmission cut through the interference. A human face appeared, not General Sharma, but a middle-aged man with dark skin and calm eyes. "This is Dr. Quain Osei, Chief Scientist of the Earth Defense Coalition. Your vessels have been temporarily neutralized using technology adapted from your own designs. We have no desire for war, but we will not submit to conquest. You have two options. Leave our system immediately, or we will be forced to demonstrate our more offensive capabilities." Admiral Vorn snarled, slamming his fist against his command console. "This is impossible. How could they have developed such technology so quickly?" A junior officer approached cautiously. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity from Earth's moon." The view screens shifted to show the lunar surface, where massive doors were opening in what had appeared to be natural craters. From these openings rose weapons platforms, dozens of them, their designs a strange hybrid of human and voidborn technology. "They've had these hidden all along," whispered Laris. "This wasn't developed in weeks. They've been preparing for years." The truth dawned on Admiral Vorn with horrifying clarity. The humans hadn't just gotten lucky with salvage technology. They had been monitoring the Empire, studying them, preparing for this encounter for far longer than anyone had suspected. Before Vorn could issue new orders, the lunar platforms fired. Beams of concentrated energy, refined versions of the weapon that had disabled Commander Vex's ship, struck 20 Imperial vessels simultaneously. Unlike the disabling shot from earlier, these were set to maximum power. 20 of the Empire's most advanced warships were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma in seconds. Panic spread through the fleet. Some captains ordered their crews to restore power manually. Others prepared their self-destruct sequences rather than be captured. On the Emperor's fury, Admiral Vorn watched in horror as a second wave of lunar platforms targeted their weapons. All vessels capable of movement, retreat immediately. Vorn commanded, his voice cracking with uncharacteristic fear. Full emergency protocols. Return to Imperial space. The remaining ships that could still maneuver began desperate retreat trajectories. On Earth, in the underground command center, Dr. Osei stood beside General Sharma, watching the Imperial fleet scatter. "Should we pursue?" asked a military officer. Sharma shook her head. "Let them go. Let them carry our message back to their empire." Dr. Osei nodded in agreement. "They need to understand that Earth will not be an easy conquest. We've been listening to their communications for decades, reverse engineering what little we could detect. Their arrival just confirmed what we suspected and accelerated our research." On a secure channel, a transmission reached the retreating Emperor's fury. Admiral Vorn, his pride shattered but his survival instinct intact, accepted the communication. General Sharma's face appeared on his private screen. "Admiral, ensure your empire understands this. Earth has no interest in your territories or resources. We desire only to exist unmolested. But if forced to war, we will fight with everything we have. We are not like the other species you've subjugated. We do not accept defeat. We adapt. We overcome, and we remember those who threaten our home." As the Imperial ships limped away from the Sol system, Admiral Vorn composed his report to Grand Admiral Zoll. How could he explain this unprecedented failure? How could he describe a pre-FTL civilization that had somehow anticipated their arrival and prepared effective countermeasures? In the end, his report contained a warning that had never before appeared in Imperial records. Approach with extreme caution. Conquest not recommended at current force levels. 6 months later, in the Great Hall of the Imperial Palace on the Voidborn homeworld, Grand Admiral Zoll faced the Emperor himself. The chamber was silent as Zoll finished his account of the Earth debacle. "You mean to tell me," the Emperor said, his ancient voice barely above a whisper, "that 50 of our warships were defeated by a single planet of primitives?" Zoll lowered his head. "They were not as primitive as we believed, Your Eminence. Somehow, they had been monitoring our communications, studying our technology from a distance. When our ships arrived, they were prepared with countermeasures specifically designed against our systems." The Emperor's eyes narrowed to slits. "And now, our long-range monitoring stations have detected unusual activity in their system," Zoll replied. "They are building, Your Eminence. Ships unlike any we've seen, hybrids of their technology and ours. And they're expanding rapidly. They've established bases on their moon, their neighboring planet, and throughout their asteroid belt. At their current rate of advancement," he didn't need to finish the sentence. The Emperor understood the implication. These humans, these supposedly primitive beings, had gone from planetary defense to system-wide expansion in mere months. "Quarantine the sector," the Emperor ordered. "No Imperial ships are to approach their system until we better understand this threat." For the first time in the 9,000-year history of the Voidborn Empire, they had retreated from a conquest. For the first time, they had encountered a species that refused to accept their predetermined role in the cosmic hierarchy. On Earth, humanity celebrated their victory, but the leaders of the Earth Defense Coalition knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The Empire would return eventually, with greater numbers and prepared for Earth's defenses. But humans would be ready. Already, ships were being constructed using the technology gleaned from the captured Imperial vessels. Scientists worked day and night to unlock the secrets of faster-than-light travel from the fragmented communications they had intercepted over decades. In a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, General Sharma stood before the prototype of humanity's first true interstellar vessel. Its hull gleamed with a combination of Earth metals and salvaged Imperial alloys. Its engines hummed with energy that defied conventional physics. "We named it Defiance," she told Dr. Osei as they admired the ship. "Fitting, don't you think?" Osei nodded, a small smile crossing his face. The Voidborn thought they were discovering Earth. They didn't realize Earth was discovering the galaxy. The stars had once seemed distant, unreachable. Now they represented humanity's future, a future the Voidborn Empire had inadvertently accelerated. The Empire had meant to subjugate humanity. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. And now, that giant was coming for the stars.